Welcome to my Instagram feed. We're going to talk to Beto O'Rourke today, one of my favorite people. He's very funny, in addition to being an amazing activist. There he is. See if I can figure this out here. There he is.
Hey,
Hey, Beto.
good to see you.
Good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm in San Antonio today. We're knocking on doors safely at a distance with this amazing grassroots organization called the Texas Organizing Project. And we are in one of these really competitive state house districts in Bexar County, which is where San Antonio is, knocking doors with a woman named Selena Montoya, who's running for the state house, who is going to be so good on really everything that we care about, but to include gun safety in Texas. So
That's amazing.
yeah, it's
And
good to
why
be
San
here.
Antonio? What is that? Is that an area where you feel like you can make a real difference?
Yeah, I mean, so she has the courage to step up and run in what, so many people have probably told her is a reliably red district. And she came pretty close in 2018, is running again in 2020, and they're throwing everything, including the kitchen sink, at her right now. And as you know, Shannon, this is one of the most voter suppressed states in the country, where the Republican majorities have tried to make it really hard, especially for voters of color, to register and cast their ballots. And so when you have a great future leader like Selena, who's willing to step up and do this, I want to make sure that we've got her back. And I know that there are so many volunteers across the state of Texas and even outside of Texas who feel the same way, who've been helping out. And I just felt in this last week, I want to make sure we haven't left anything undone or any door unknocked, even though we're in the middle of this pandemic. So we found a very safe, responsible way to do this at a distance. And yeah, so if she wins, then we stand a very good chance of winning a majority in the state house for the first time in 20 years. And this infrastructure of suppression and intimidation, we can begin to take that apart and just allow people to vote, which sounds like a no-brainer in a democracy, but it's an open question right now in Texas. So we were in Harris County, which is Houston, yesterday, Bexar County today, Dallas County tomorrow, and we're just going to keep hustling all the way through 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on the night of November 3rd.
I love it. You have been tireless and amazing, and also obviously our Moms Demand Action volunteers in Texas and around the country who are calling into the state to help turn it into a gun sense majority. I wanted to take this time to talk with you because Texas is a battleground state, which we never necessarily imagined. I lived in Texas. I graduated from high school in Plano. I have watched how this issue has changed over the decades in the state of Texas. We know the vast majority of Texans want stronger gun laws. They support things like a background check on every gun sale. 86% of Texans support that. And 60% of Texans, including a majority of Republican women, say they would never vote for a candidate who didn't support background checks. So you are either calling all around the state or you're actually going to cities. What are people telling you when you have conversations about this issue?
Yeah, it is. And it's funny, one of your volunteers, when I was first running, actually I was thinking about running in 2017 for the United States Senate against Ted Cruz. And I was actually here in San Antonio, and I was traveling the state just to listen to people and see if, am I the right guy to take this on? Is this the right time? And, do people really want to change? And a Moms Demand volunteer really educated me on not just the policies, but how they fall politically. And she said, look, I'm a gun owner. My husband's a gun owner. We come from a long tradition of gun owners in our family here in San Antonio. We hunt, we have guns in our home for self-defense, but we're smart about it. And she says, our experience is not unique. You will find not only a majority of Democrats, but a majority of Republicans who want universal background checks, who want safe gun storage in their homes, who just want to make sure that while we are, adamant about protecting our Second Amendment rights, we're even more adamant about protecting the lives of those who are in our lives, our kids, our family members, the people with whom we live and work. And she really kind of broke through this, what was really a myth, that this is a third rail in American politics, and don't ever bring this thing up when you're at a voter's door. Only talk about the things that are safe to say. And I think she really helped me as a candidate in 2017 find the courage to say what was necessary and to defy the conventional wisdom, which turned out to be incorrect politically. And so in 2020, and when we're knocking on doors, and actually we were just in Collin County, you probably know the little community of Princeton outside of Plano. That's where I had my Airbnb, and then we would go into one of the competitive state house districts in Collin County, knock on doors. And, folks won't agree on every single aspect of maybe every position I've taken or that a given candidate will take, but almost everyone to a person agrees that what we're doing right now is clearly not working. And they want to have a conversation. And it's not forbidden, and it's not a third rail, and you won't lose it if you bring it up. And then there's this. Invariably, when we're hosting phone banks, or back when we could organize physically together in person, those meetings, those efforts would have a very strong Moms Demand presence. They're not only the voters, they're the organizers and volunteers who are driving the turnout in this election. And Shannon, prior to 2018, Texas ranked 50th, dead last in voter turnout. The beautiful story of 2020 is, so far during this election, we're first in the country in number of ballots cast, in voter turnout, and we're also first in the country in our performance this year versus how we did in 2016. And it's because we have great candidates. It's I think in part a reaction to the voter suppression. People say, look, if they're trying this hard to keep me from voting, then maybe my vote is that important. And then it's the volunteers, like the Moms Demand volunteers, who are making hundreds of thousands, probably millions of phone calls and texts at this point. So I think this has not only become, a quote unquote safe issue to talk about, it has become a driving, determining issue in a very positive way for the good things that we all want to do. So I'm encouraged by that.
I am too, and I know our Texas volunteers, we've been working on this now for almost 8 years. And if you had told us when we started back in late, 2012, early 2013, especially when we would have armed, mostly men, showing up at our events all over the state, if you had told us that this would be a battleground state and that this would be an issue that not only wasn't a third rail anymore, but candidates were running on it and getting people out to the polls on it, I'm not sure I would have believed you. So that's a significant amount of change in just 8 years, right? I mean, the point of activism is kind of to show candidates over and over again, if you do the right thing, we'll have your back. If you do the wrong thing, we'll have your job. And that's not like a one and done, right? That's like several election cycles of doing that. And then you have to have this, as you said, this grassroots army, which you've created and which Moms Demand Action has. We have made over 1 million calls now. We've sent millions of texts. Our Students Demand Action volunteers have registered over 100,000 voters. I'm really proud of the fact that we have 51 Moms Demand Action leaders running for office. For example, my friend Jen Skidanenko is running for a seat in the Texas State House. So I think all of these things create change. And so would you talk a little bit about your experience from going from candidate to, you're really like a grassroots organizer now, in many ways. What have you all done and what have you seen be successful?
When I was a Senate candidate and I would travel to North Texas to Denton County, very often it would be Jen Skidanenko who would organize the town hall or the rally that we'd have. I mean, she'd find the location, she'd get the word out, she'd bring on other volunteers, and every single one of those events was successful. And it helped to produce the largest voter turnout in a midterm in Texas since 1970. And it helped to produce victories, although we didn't beat Ted Cruz, victories up and down the ballot. Colin Allred and Lizzie Panel Fletcher to Congress, 12 new state house reps. And so I saw her power as an organizer and as a leader in Moms Demand in the state of Texas. Now I love it so much that she is a candidate and I'm her volunteer. who is making phone calls on her behalf, who's recruiting other volunteers to work for her campaign. And I'm inspired to do so, not just because she did that for me, but because she has the courage of her convictions, and she's doing nothing for the sake of being safe as a candidate. She's not listening to the consultants or the pollsters or the focus groups. She's listening to the people that she wants to serve. And as maybe much common sense as that makes to most of us, when we hear someone, doing that, it is so not the norm in this country right now, where everyone is playing safe and to what they have been told will be okay for them to say. And there's no drama, there's no excitement, there's no energy, there's no risk, there's no heat, there's no action around that. And when you hear someone say something that you can tell has come from their heart and they truly believe in, and maybe they've even been told not to say that and they're saying it anyhow, that is so exciting. And it gets you up in the morning. You're like, you know what, if this person is busting their ass and doing this at great risk personally to themselves and their family and in putting themselves out there, then I better do my part for them as well. And so I think you make an excellent point. It not only is it not the third rail, it has become literally an energizing dynamic in these races in Texas. And I think it might very well allow us to surprise the country where, if Jen is able to excite new voters, and there's been 2 million new voters registered just since the last presidential election, if she can get them to turn out in record numbers, and Denton County is one of the record-setting counties in Texas, then not only is she more likely to win, and are we more likely to have a Democratic majority, but those voters will go up the ticket to the U.S. Senate race and to the presidential, and could help Joe Biden become the first Democratic nominee since '76 to carry the state, which, given the fact that we decide the outcome on election night, unlike Pennsylvania or Wisconsin, that could end the nightmare on election night without going through days or weeks, or even having this decided by the new Supreme Court justice that has been rushed through her nomination and confirmation process. So I think all of that grows out of districts like Jen's and out of issues like the one that we're talking about.
So, and that's a lot of that's about the presidency, but even, making such a difference in Texas, if we flip 9 seats in the House, if we have a gun sense majority, we've spent about $2.5 million so far. 80% of our district targets are spread across Dallas and Houston. And yet, we've seen 4 of the deadliest mass shootings in our nation's history in Texas. And what did lawmakers do? They actually loosened gun laws, right? Even after El Paso, Odessa, Midland. So what do you think it looks like in the state of Texas if we flip these 9 seats, if we hold the House, if we own the House? What would it look like?
Yeah. So real quick, you mentioned 4 of the deadliest mass shootings in the history of this country: El Paso, Midland, Odessa, Sutherland Springs, Santa Fe High School. And I think it's really important, and you do such a great job of this, your volunteers do such a great job of this, and candidates like Jen do such a great job of this, but very important to connect the dots, lest someone be tempted to believe that this shit happens. Hey, crazy people, they do crazy things. What are you gonna do? If they didn't have a gun, they'd have a knife. This just happens in this country. And no, it doesn't just have to happen. And you mentioned that literally within days after 23 people were murdered in El Paso by someone who had a weapon of war, whose mom called the police and said, "I'm concerned that my son has just purchased this. I don't know what to do." And the police, with no extreme risk protection order on the books, had no recourse and just said, "I'm sorry, ma'am, out of our hands and out of yours. Good luck." That it doesn't have to be that way, and that within days of that, the laws passed in the past legislative session not only did not make our state safer when it came to guns, it made it far more dangerous, allowing guns to be carried on the church property, on the school property, even into businesses that had posted that they did not want guns on their premises. And so I think our candidates have the obligation and opportunity to connect those dots, to say, look, you don't become one of the most violent, one of the deadliest places on planet Earth by chance. It wasn't our lot in life. There were decisions made by those in positions of public trust. And as you said, if in trying to hold them accountable, we fail to change the track that they're on, then we need to change them out. And I think when we do that, and when we win, and when we have a Democratic majority, a gun sense majority in the Texas House, then you get a state which does have this very proud, responsible tradition of gun ownership. And I come from one of those families where at a very young age, I was taught how to handle and use and fire a gun responsibly, that we become a leader on gun safety in this country and reducing gun violence in this safety. And it's, maybe, Shannon, maybe this is the wrong analogy or metaphor, but kind of a Nixon going to China moment. It's this state that you thought of as so red and so rural and so connected with America's fascination with guns. If this were the state that took the lead on this nationally, then it might very well help us to get to universal background checks and some of these other important policy priorities much more quickly than we otherwise would. That's how big a role I think Texas has, politically, legislatively, and also in our psyche as Americans.
Well, and once you registered all these people to vote, especially new people, you're not going back, right? Texas will be such an important force in all elections going forward.
Yeah, this is the thing. So we have the most onerous voter ID laws in the country, the worst racial gerrymander in America, 750 polling place closures. Our governor just deleted or removed all the satellite absentee ballot drop-off locations in all counties in Texas, making it harder for people to cast their ballot. He just announced, or I read a story yesterday that he may deploy 1,000 state guard around the election. There's no rioting, no public safety threat that I know of in Texas, and I've traveled every single part of this state. And he's doing it to intimidate and scare people. You have to ask yourselves, why are they trying so hard to keep people from voting? Because, as you suggest, if Democrats win this year and have a seat at the redistricting table in 2021, then the last grasp of power for Republicans that has been essentially constructed along racial lines and suppressing Black and Latino voters and voters in communities of color in Texas, that's all over. And it's gone forever. This rapidly growing, very young, majority minority state that is among the most diverse in the country. In fact, I think it's second only to California, really then comes into its own and fulfills its potential and lives up to its promise. And I'm just so excited about that. And it's a real test of our democracy to see if the voter can overcome the voter suppression. And that's why when your volunteers and anyone who is thinking about signing up for a shift with Moms Demand, please do so, because when you call that voter in the last days of early voting and help them make a plan to vote, you're not pushing a policy or even a candidate or even a party at this point. You're just helping them negotiate and navigate the intricacies of voting in Texas, which makes it harder than any other state in the country. That was the Washington Post headline on Friday. And so I see your volunteers, Shannon, as less partisan and even beyond the policy issues around gun safety, as helping us save our democracy at a time that it is under threat, unlike any time since, maybe the 19th century and the election of 1864. So this is a big one, and these are big, important roles that people are taking on. And so I know there are a lot of Moms Demand volunteers watching right now. I just want to say thank you. You are doing the most important work that I can think of in our country right now.
Well, we're grateful, and we're grateful to have your support, and you have just been such an incredible force for good, not just in Texas, but across the country. We only have 1 week until the election. We don't want to take anything for granted. We have to keep our foot on the gas until every single vote is cast. I know we all want to look back and know that we did everything we could to elect a gun sense president, to flip the Senate, to hold the House, to change the makeup of state legislatures, like in Texas, where we can make a huge difference with those 9 seats in the House. So I've pinned a phone bank to this conversation. I will also post it with the video after this. We want people to join it. It starts at 6:45 Central. We know every single call counts, every conversation we have. I've been speaking to Moms Demand Action volunteers who are running for office, some of them who are running for re-election. They were only elected by maybe 400 vote margin in the last race. It matters. Imagine if you add up 500 calls in one day, that could be it for putting someone over the finish line. So I just would urge everyone to join this phone bank, to have these conversations in Texas. And Beto, you know, what closing thoughts would you offer to our viewers? And please do not talk about raisins. Do not talk about pavement,
carbs and sugar.
Pavement, the band Pavement. Just like what closing thoughts do you have on electoral politics?
I sure hope that after this election, you have a regular Instagram live program that I can tune into and watch. I've really enjoyed watching them. I've seen you do this with so many different people, engaging with their followers and talking about what's on the line in this election. And I think one thing I learned from 2008 is I worked my tail off for Senator Obama in the primary and then in the general election. And when he won, I'm embarrassed to say this, I thought my job was done. And I said, great, got him elected, now watch him save the country. And what I now know in hindsight, after we lost more than 1,000 legislative seats in the country following the 2008 election, is that the work had really just begun. And so seriously, I mean, your engagement, the engagement of your volunteers, all of us who are watching this, all of us who are so concerned about our country, maintain that concern and that urgency following this election. I mean, take a breather, drink a beer, and then we got to get back at it, because there will be a reaction to 2020 for sure. And we need to continue to talk to each other, listen to each other. This phone bank is like on my screen, it's right where I'm pointing. I will tell you all, I've done phone banks all year. They're not the easiest things to do. They're not always the funnest. Sometimes you're reaching people who are eating dinner, or they don't want to be bothered, or they don't want to talk about politics. But I guarantee you, I just did a phone bank last night. You will reach that person who says, oh, you know, I've been thinking about voting, but I don't, where do I vote? And you can help them find their nearest early voting location. You can tell them what they need to bring with them when they vote. And you can just give them a nudge. People are working 2-3 jobs in a state where the minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. Forgive them if their top priority isn't voting in this election. And if they don't have the luxury to read the news and follow what's going on, your call to them may be literally the only outreach that they receive this entire year, and may be what it takes to get them out to vote. And in a state like Texas, where the latest poll has Joe Biden at 48%, Donald Trump at 45%, it is going to be razor thin, in my opinion. We may decide this election by a couple of votes, and your call might have been the one that won that deciding vote. So please do that. I cannot think of anything more important. You know, it's important that we donate, important that we tweet our outrage, important that we post on social media, but the grind and hard work of talking to voters, that's how you get this thing done. So we really love, you know, all of us Empowered by People, what Moms Demand is doing. I see one of our top callers on Powered by People, Tim Leba, is on here. She's made thousands of calls this year. And Shannon, you've been such a force for good in this country, and you are so unafraid, so strong, so funny in the face of people who are so ugly and vicious and vile. And you really are the example to me and so many who want to believe that we can come through this, and that we can do work in a way that is ethical, that's tough, but is still fun, and where we do it with people with whom we have a good time. And you represent that to me. So please keep doing what you're doing.
Well, and right back at you. It has been a true joy to get to know you, and for our volunteers, especially gun violence survivors, who are so grateful for your voice. I mean, you're truly unafraid, unapologetic voice. And like you said, I'm already worried about the midterms. So let's get through November 3rd. Let's win, and then let's keep going.
I'm with you. And we've joined a couple of your phone banks. Whenever you can use us, you need another person on the phones, come do it. Yeah, on my screen, it's right here, folks. On your screen, it's somewhere, but click that, sign up. Give yourself, say, look, I'll do 30 minutes of calls, and then if it's going well, stay on for the next hour. And then if it's going well, keep going.
Don't get off till next Tuesday.
That's right. And you said this at the top, and I couldn't agree with you more. It's part of the reason that I'm in San Antonio, even though it's my wife Amy's and my son Henry's birthday today in El
Happy
Paso.
birthday,
Now,
Amy and Henry.
right, that was a tough decision for us to split up for this week, but we both want to know at the end of this at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on November 3rd, we did everything we possibly could have. And so if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling some sense of despair around this election, the antidote to that is making phone calls and doing work. You won't have time to be worried. You'll just be talking to that voter. So keep it up, folks. And Shannon, cannot wait to see you again, hopefully in person before long.
Yes.
And looking forward to talking with you before.
Thanks,
before
Beto.
too
Say
long.
hi to everybody in San Antonio, but like from a long distance.
I will. Likewise.
Bye.
Adios.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Adios. Okay, everyone, so this is the link right here. See that? That's the phone bank link. I'm going to put it in the post for this video too. Again, we just have to flip 9 seats in the Texas State House. We have also some amazing federal candidates in Texas. So please join our phone bank and you can learn more about it in the post on this video. Thanks so much. Bye.